Hello everyone, welcome back to some more Let's Read Dragon Age Origins lore. And we have quite a bit to read. We just finished the Brazilian Forest, so I would like to polish up everything else that we have to still read here. So, let's see. First off, we have some information about Keeper Zathrian and Witherfang, which we might as well finish now. So, let's see. What did we learn about him? Long ago, in retribution for an attack against his clan, he unleashed a terrible curse. He summoned a spirit into this world and set it upon the humans who had wronged him. The spirit did not simply slaughter Zathrian's enemies, it transformed them into monstrous beasts. In time, however, the werewolves he had created regained their minds, and they sought out the one responsible for their suffering, turning the curse upon Zathrian's own people. At the urging of the Lady of the Forest, Galvin persuaded Zathrian to give up his own life, returning the werewolves to their human forms, and saving the elves who had been inflicted with the curse. I thought we had to fight him. No, that's right. Nope, he did kill himself at the very, very end. Sorry everyone, it's been like a month since I last played. Witherfang. Witherfang is, according to Keeper Zathrian, a wolf. He is no ordinary wolf, however. He is a wolf possessed by a powerful spirit and the source of the werewolf curse that plagues the Brazilian forest. While Witherfang is hundreds of years old and very powerful in his own right, the only way to end his curse is to cut out his heart and bring it to Zathrian. It appears that Witherfang has two sides, as nature does. One is the wolf, savage and male, but the other is the Lady of the Forest, gentle and female. Witherfang is both beast and beauty, terrible and peace-loving. The Lady has guided the werewolves to the Brazilian forest to come to peace with their nature, as she has. Okay, so what items did we earn? Ancient Elven Armor. Before the fall of Arlathan, even before Arlathan itself, the civilization of the elves stretched across all of Thedas like a great, indolent cat. This armor was made for temple guards in the time when the creators still spoke to the elves. The techniques of its forging, even the name of the metal it is forged from, have long since faded from memory. Wow, ancient piece of history, which I think Liliana is currently wearing. Creatures, we have two new ones. An actual dragon. Female dragons take much longer to mature than their male counterparts. They, too, undergo a metamorphosis of sorts at adulthood, but while males lose the use of their forepaws, females actually grow a third set of limbs specifically to serve as wings. Young females travel great distances looking for a suitable nesting site. Because of their nomadic habits, these are the dragons most frequently encountered by man. Oh, gotcha, so you see them flying overhead. Gotcha. Wild Sylvan. For demons crossing over into our world, mankind is not always the preferred prey. Possessing humans means risking encounters with powerful mages and Templars, as well as other complications. Some demons find it far easier to seek out animals or even plants, assuming that these will make a suitable host for as a human would. Those that possess trees are known as Wild Sylvans. Generally, only demons of rage, the weakest of the demon hierarchy, will become a Sylvan. Once they do, they must spend a great deal of time twisting and molding the host in order to make it immobile. And once they have, the Sylvan is a powerful and deadly opponent. Other, more intelligent spirits have also been known to become Sylvans, and are generally much less violent, but these are rare. Slow but immensely powerful, Wild Sylvans prefer to lay in ambush, waiting for a victim to become lost, tired, or trapped before closing in for the kill. They hide among regular trees, nearly undetectable, until they begin to move and to reach. When they do come to life, as some travelers say, they stand tall, roots forming into legs and feet, and branches stretching out into lashing arms. When not presented with a living target, however, it has been noted that Sylvans often fall into a form of dormancy, perhaps brought on by the nature of their tree host. While mobile, they normally return to wherever it was they were rooted once their prey has been killed. For both these reasons, a forest that has Sylvans within can become incredibly dangerous to pass through for long periods of time. And for culture, we have any culture? We have one, Legend of the Juggernaut. The arm of the Imperium is long. Once it reached even this forest, in a time when the barbarian tribes of the clan still ruled the land. The Tevinter Magisters fought to take it from them inch by inch if need be, using terrible magic. The Magister Harak brought an army to this forest, led by Alaric, his friend and general. For Alaric, Harak fashioned a suit of the finest armor, infused it with lyrium and his own blood magic, and named it Juggernaut, after the unstoppable giant golems guarding the gates of Midrathius. Thus armed did Alaric win many victories against the clan. When defeat came, it came from within. Alaric's own lieutenants rose up against him, jealous of the favor he had curried with the Magisters and eager to take the Juggernaut armor from him. Alaric was slain, and as each successor gained the armor, the other lieutenants turned against him instead. The Deventer outpost fell to vicious infighting. In a fury, Magister Harak voyaged to the outpost and slew the last 3 lieutenants. The clan, however, were already approaching the outpost in force. The barbarian chieftain of the clan desired the fabled armor himself, and even with all his power, Harak could not hope to stand against them all. Instead, Harak used the last of his own life force to cast a spell of blood magic that bound demons to the bodies of the 3 dead lieutenants, as well as Harak's own lifeless corpse. These bound revenants hid the pieces of the Juggernaut armor, and although the barbarians sacked the outpost, the chieftain found neither the armor nor the revenants. The Juggernaut armor's legend lives on, and more than one brave soul has ventured into the depths of the Brazilian forest in search, never to return. From Ferelden Folklore and History, by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. Everyone, that's all the lore we have to read. When we come back, we'll probably be reading about what happens in the Deep Roads. I will see you guys then. Hey everyone, welcome back to some more Let's Read Dragon Age Origins lore. Again, as usual, this will just be a lot of reading. There won't be any action for this video series. If you don't like listening to the lore, I'd probably recommend that you just don't watch this video. Alright, so here we go. And wow, we've got 10 codex entries for culture and history, not including everything else that we have, and we have a lot to read. So let's get started. And a lot of this will probably deal with Orzammar and the dwarves and so on, so let's start. The Castlist. The caste system in Orzammar includes many groups of privilege, the nobility and the warriors above all others, but to a lesser degree, the merchants and the smiths and the miners. Tradition establishes a clear hierarchy, but as in any culture with an upper class, there is also a clear underclass. These unfortunates, the so-called Castlists, are believed to be descendants of criminals and other undesirables. They have been looked down upon since Orzammar's foundation. They have taken up residence in a place called Dusttown, a crumbling ruin on the fringe of Orzammar's common areas. Orzammar's society considers these Castlists lower than even the servant caste. Indeed, the Castlists are not allowed to become servants, as it is too honorable a position. They are seen as little better than animals, their faces branded at birth to mark them as the bastard children of the kingdom. Their home district, little more than a slum, is a haven for crime, organized and otherwise. Orzammar's guards seemingly cannot be bothered to patrol its streets. The best that most Castlist dwarves can hope for is a life at the whim of a local crime lord, ended abruptly by violence or an overabundance of toxic lichen ale. Even so, there is some hope for the Castlists, a dangling rope that offers a way up into greater Orzammar society, since the dwarves' caste is determined by the parent of the same sex. The male child of a nobleman is part of that noble's house and caste. Strangely, it is acceptable for casteless women to train in the arts of courtly romance to woo nobles and warriors. They are known as noble hunters. Any male born from such a union is considered a joyous event, considering the low rate of dwarven fertility. The mother and entire family are then taken in by the father's house, although they retain their caste. The dwarves we know on the surface are also considered casteless once they leave Orzammar, although this is only relevant to those who return, if they are allowed to return at all. Dwarves who leave for the surface, the sun-touched, as they're often called behind their backs, lose their connection with the stone and the favor of the ancestors, and thus are worthy of little more than pity, for upon dying, they are said to be lost to the stone forever. Put that way, it seems a sad existence indeed. From Stone Halls of the Dwarves, by Brother Genetivi, Chantry Scholar. Legion of the Dead. Yes, the stone's greetings, friend. You will fight ceaselessly in the Legion of the Dead. Motto of the Legion of the Dead. The Legion accepts all, so I was told by one of the Legionnaires himself, a dwarf who waited quietly at the entrance to the deep roads for the rest of his unit to assemble. They gathered slowly, each equipped with heavy armor and fine weapons, each painted with grim tattoos applied at their funerals the night previous. For that is the nature of the Legion. They are all dead. Any dwarf may join the Legion, so long as he is willing to give up everything he has. The funeral rites are somber. A final goodbye is said to family and loved ones. Any material goods are dispersed to heirs, and last words are said. And then it is done. The new Legionnaire marches out into the deep roads, never to return. The Legion fights against the Darkspawn to the last, striking one final blow against the monsters that have claimed so much of their homeland. Many join the Legion to clear the slate. Criminals join to avoid punishment. The dishonored join so that their houses and families need not suffer on their behalf. The bankrupted join so their debts might be forgiven. A very few join for the last chance at glory, but the Legion takes them too. This group hopes to reach the fabled fortress of Balnamar, once the Legion's home, associated with the greatest of their Paragons. Balnamar is a holy place. It's lost the last great blow against the Dwarven kingdoms, and its recapture would be a glorious signal to all of Orzammar. But capture it or no, all of these warriors will die in the deep roads. It is a sombering thought, and I now know why the dwarves say the Legion charge is the battlefield's most frightening sight. They have nothing left to lose. From the Stone Halls of the Dwarves, by Brother Ginnatimvi, Chantry Scholar. Let's read about the castes. Visitors to Orzammar should keep in mind that the hierarchies of Dwarven society are much more complex than our own. It is easy to gravely insult a man simply by mistaking his position. Since this can lead to unnecessary loss of life and limbs, I will attempt to mitigate the danger for my fellow travelers. The society of Orzammar is divided into nobles, warriors, smiths, artisans, miners, merchants, and servants. Now, you're undoubtedly saying to yourself, we have all those divisions among our own people. This is a dangerous misconception. Certainly, we do have nobility, artisans, merchants, and these positions are largely inherited from our parents. However, the younger children of noblemen often choose to be artisans and soldiers. Artisans and soldiers. The sons of merchants may join the army, or become servants, or apprentice themselves to a craftsman. This is all freely chosen, limited, perhaps, by the circumstances of birth, but still chosen. What is a matter of choice for most human folk is dictated entirely by birth for the dwarves. No one may become a smith who is not born to smith caste parents. A servant who marries a noblewoman will never be a noble himself, and although his daughters would be nobles, his sons would be servants, for daughters inherit the caste of their mother, while sons inherit the caste of their father. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Ginnatimvi. Life in Orzammar. The dwarves of Orzammar are quite unlike those found in most human cities. Although Orzammar derives its vast wealth from trade with human kingdoms, all dwarves who come to the surface to trade are stripped of their position in society. Dwarven merchants are so, I can't pronounce this word, ubiquitous in human cities that many people labor under the impression that all dwarves are merchants, or that their whole race worships coin and trade. But these surface dwarves are atypical creatures, the ones willing to give up all ties to their kin and sacrifice their rank in order to conduct business. Below ground, the dwarves are a people obsessed with honor, their own and that of their family. Most nobles incorporate chainmail even into formal gowns because slights and insults often turn deadly. They are a people who revere excellence and strive to achieve it in all things. Even members of the servant caste have been elevated to paragons, usually posthumously, in recognition of remarkable service. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Ginnatimvi. Let's take a break from the culture and history. Let's look and see what characters we have here. Balin Adukin. This is the time for action, not culture debate. Third of the King Eldrin's children, Balin has always been considered the last and least of his family. Not the heir nor the favorite, and not as accomplished as either sibling, Balin's most notable trait was his ability to stay out of trouble. King Edrin Adukin. Denial of the traditions of our people does not qualify as a political technicality. Endrin of House Adukin traces his ancestry back to the Paragon Adukin, the the greatest warrior of Orzammar's history, who beat back the Darkspawn hordes in the first Blight. The second son of King Ansgar and Dukin, he became heir after his elder brother died in the Proving. The most respected king in 4 generations, he restored contact with Kal Sharak, the only other remaining city of the once vast Dwarven Empire, which had been lost during the First Blight. Lord Pyrrell Harrowmount. No one is born with the rights to the throne. The sitting king may recommend the successor, but the assembly ultimately decides who will rule. House Harrowmont is one of the oldest noble houses, as old as Orzammar itself. Endrin's most trusted advisor Harrowmont is well known for being an able advisor, and the author of many compromises in the ever-warring assembly. Good for him. It takes a whole lot of skill in order to have 2 sides come together and talk about their issues. Though I imagine in this place it happens probably with a good deal of threats, daggers, and poison. Let's look at our creatures. We have 2 new unlocks here. A Nug. Hip deep in mad Nugs. Our screams deafen their keen ears. We will be Nug Poop. Oh, that's a haiku! From Songs That Only Nugs Can Hear, by Paragon Ebrian, 584 Exalted. The Nug is an omnivore common to the deep roads. A hairless creature that is almost blind as well as completely docile. It spends most of its time wading in shallow pools as well as mud pits, feeding on small insects, worms, and, in a pinch, limestone and simple metals. Indeed, the digestive system of the Nug is legendary, able to make a meal out of almost anything a Nug finds on the cavern floors. Nugs reproduce rapidly, spreading into any niche within the deep roads they can find, and serve to support a variety of predators such as giant spiders and deep stalkers. So too do dwarves make meals out of them. Nugs are, in the proper slum portions of Orzammar, one of the most common sources of meat available. Some dwarves even domesticate the creatures, claiming to find the creature's high-pitched squeaks pleasing. And the Shriek. Oh, this was that crazy darkspawn we fought earlier. Scholars call these tall, lean darkspawn the Sharlock, although they are more popularly known as Shrieks because of their ear-splitting cries they emit in battle. Many tales exist of soldiers being unnerved by the sounds of approaching Shrieks, cloaked in darkness and never seen until the moment they strike. As horrors of the night, Shrieks are renowned for their incredible speed and agility, as well as their stealth. They are the assassins of the Darkspawn, penetrating the enemy lines and striking their targets using long, jagged blades attached to their forearms to rip their opponents to shreds in seconds. They have been known to employ poison, often drawn from their own blood, and have demonstrated cunning group tactics when attacking in numbers. Take a look at my notes really quick. What's this? A letter from King Endrin. My Lord Harrowmont, my guilt weighs heavily on me, and I know now that I was a fool. Only a fool would cut out his own heart and burn it for the sake of appearances. I allowed the assembly to send my child to exile and death because I feared an inquiry into Trian's murder would taint our house with scandal. You have been my rock and my shield these long months, and for that I thank you. But I must ask for one thing more. I wish to discover if my child survived. Even the smallest trace will set my mind at ease. Send your men, your scouts, anyone who will go. Balin thinks I am mad. He says that if word spreads of my wish, our house will be undone. He doesn't know that Andukin is already lost. I destroyed us when I sacrificed what was most precious. Please, Pyrrell, help me. I come to you not as a king, but as a father. A note from the late king, Endrin Adukin. This is awesome. This plays into the other dwarven start. You can either pick a dwarven brand, which is the name of the Castlist, or a dwarven noble when you start a dwarf character. This relates somewhat to the starting dwarf noble choice. The Black Vials. Wow, okay, so I don't know how many of these I found. The only thing different about these will be the name, I think. I don't know which ones we've read. So, I guess we'll read all of these again. Binding the first corpse walker. Let the dead no longer serve your whim. Bound by your true name, no mortal hand shall reach you. Kale Viazagat, revenant and perversion of an only son. Death beyond death is no longer your stepping stone through the veil. Andraste hold you, demon, and bind your rage for eternity. 6 thumbprints in blood mark the end of the text. Binding of the second corpse walker. Cast from your host, may you find no purchase on mortal ground. Bound by your true name, as we are sworn to do. Nethemis, Beagle, revenant and perversion of a fine daughter. No more will you test the veil, nor reach the fade to escape. Andraste hold you, demon, and bind your rage for eternity. So we're letting these things out and killing them. Binding of the fourth corpse walker. You deny our dead their rest, and so you also will be hounded. Let the strength of our union bind you by your true name. Quametha Kagat, revenant and perversion of an honored father. Though no spirit cage will undo what was suffered, Andraste hold you, demon, and bind your rage for eternity. And the fifth one. We condemn both spirit and host for inviting the walker. With solemn hearts we bind you to your true name. Shamas, good son, revenant and perversion of a rare friendship. Regret holds more pain than burying the dead. Andraste forgive you, brother, and bind your weakness for eternity. Correspondence interruptus. Oh, these are the awkward love letters. Let's see. Maybe this one's new? Dear Sir John, your administrations, while well-intentioned, hold no promise. Do not despair, for it is not you, it is of me. I require an interval to acquaint myself with the personage you awakened. I'm certain we can maintain an amiable record, and that engagements with our mutual associations will not be awkward. Mary. Is that a "it's not you, it's me"? Is that a fancy way of saying that? I think it is. My elf-fruit. The herbalist suggested powdered brontohorn. I was very discreet. Your sunflower. Let's see. And that's all the new ones I can see in the notes. Spell combinations. Paralysis Explosion. The magic power of a glyph derives from the purity of its shape. When two glyphs overlap and their lines become confused, particularly when the glyph's effects are directly opposed, as with the glyph of paralysis and glyph of repulsion, the magic has no choice but to dissipate instantly and explosively, instantly paralyzing all those nearby. Let's go back to culture and history. We've got quite a few more here to do another 6. Deep roads. There isn't a dwarf alive who remembers the deep roads as they once were. They were a network of tunnels that joined the tags together. To be honest, it isn't even right to give them such a simple term as tunnels. They are works of art, with centuries of planning demonstrated in the geometry of their walls, with the statues of the Paragons that watch over travelers, with the flow of lava that keeps the deep roads lit and warm. The cloud gazers up on the surface talk of the imperial highway built by the magisters of old, a raised walkway that crossed thousands of miles, something that could only have been built by magic. Perhaps it is comparable to the deep roads, although we dwarves didn't need magic. I suppose it doesn't matter anymore. The Darkspawn rule the deep roads now. When Orzammar sealed off the entrances to the deep roads, abandoning everything that lay out there, we handed over the kingdom that was to those black bastards forever. To think that there are Genlocks crawling over Bonamar now, tearing down our statues and defiling our greatest works. Corruption covers everything we built out there. Every dwarf who goes out and comes back says that it gets worse with each passing year. The foulness spreads a little further. And the cloud gazers think the Darkspawn are gone just because they aren't spilling out onto the surface? Huh. One day when Orzammar is gone for good, they'll find out differently. Those Darkspawn won't have anywhere else to go but up. And they'll do it. The surface folk will have themselves a blight that will never end. Transcript of a conversation with a member of the Dwarven Mining Caste, 890 Blessed. The City of Orzammar. The dwarves are lauded for their craftsmanship, and the city of Orzammar is one of the finest works. Orzammar lies at the heart of the Frostback Mountains, deep underground. The city arcs outward from the royal palace, which was built around a natural lava vent, continually fountaining liquid rock, which both lights and heats the entire cavern. Their topmost tier of Orzammar is home to the noble caste, with their palaces fanning out in both directions from the court of the king, as well as the Shaperit, which serves as a repository for all dwarven knowledge. The lowest tier is the Commons, where the merchant caste holds sway and where the finest works of Orzamar's craftsmen are for sale. In the center of the River of Lava, connected to the Commons by a causeway, are the Proving Grounds, a sacred arena where the dwarves by ancient tradition settle their disputes. On one side of the fiery river are the ruins of old dwarven palaces fallen into disrepair, which the locals call Dusttown, now home to the city's Castlist. On the other side of the river are the deep roads, which once joined the sprawling dwarven empire together, but now, after centuries of darkspawn incursions, are largely sealed off. Nearly all knowledge of this network of underground passages has been lost, even to its builders. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Ginavinti. House Dukin, Shield of Orzammar. The Assembly has never named a paragon with so little disagreement as there was for Paragon Adukin. No naysayers, only a single attestation. His worthiness was unquestionable, his favor with the ancestors clear. But family rumor says that the man himself was deeply troubled, prone to fits of melancholy and self-doubt. Never satisfied with his great achievement in protecting Orzammar, he died cursing that he had not managed to save the outlying tags. Before he rose to Paragon, he was of little note. The memories tell us that he never entered a single proving, never sought to elevate his place among the warrior caste. He spent most of his years prior to the First Blight fighting skirmishes in the deep roads, keeping them free from surface bandits, content to live quietly with his wife and daughters. When the Blight began, it caught Orzammar in the midst of a vicious inter-house war. Most of the warrior caste was caught up in the feuding, for as word of attacks poured in, each great house demanded that the army be sent to defend their tag, and no house would agree to sacrifice their own holdings for the safety of any others. The Assembly was so utterly tied up with the infighting that the Darkspawn spread unchecked to the gates of Orzammar herself. In the chaos, Adukin grudgingly took command of the armies. He enlisted the aid of the mining caste to collapse overrun passages, called upon the smith caste to supply them with arms, and bypass the Assembly and the nobles entirely. With his leadership, Orzammar was saved from annihilation. For his insubordination, he was made Paragon, yet he always considered it a defeat. From A History of Adukin, Paragon, King, Peacemaker, by scholar Gertek. Probably considered a failure because everyone was so busy with their own personal agendas. No one cared. What's the expression? Only fools... Oh, it was in this game, I think. Only fools argue about who owns the house as it burns down around them. Something like that. Oh, I would imagine if you have insurance, I guess it does matter. The Paragons. As I studied among the dwarves, I became aware that their social system was rigid as the stone that surrounded them. From the lowest servant to the king of Orzammar, each dwarf has a caste, a rigid social standing, which dictates what he may do and how he may do it. What fascinated me then was that the dwarves, stubborn and proud as they may be, have built in a way for even the lowliest dwarf to bypass the caste system and reach prominence. Any dwarf who has made an achievement of significance can be named Paragon, elevating that dwarf above all others. To become a Paragon is to be recognized as, essentially, a living ancestor. Your words are considered ineffable, and the dwarves liken you unto a god. Your family, those you choose to ascend with you, become the founders of a new line of nobility. Indeed, every existing noble house among the dwarves traces its line back to a founding Paragon. It is a rare thing, however. In my visit, I learned that only one Paragon has been elected in generations, the smith Branca, exalted for her discovery of smokeless coal. I met the Paragon Branca only once during my stay, and I consider it an odd occasion indeed. Surrounded by those of her house, this ill-tempered woman was draped in the finest clothing and jewelry, and was obviously revered even above the highest nobles, perhaps even above the king. Yet she seemed to enjoy none of it. The burden of being a living legend is great, it appears. Statues of Paragons are found throughout Orzammar, though nowhere as prominently in the Hall of Heroes, through which one passes on entering from the surface. It is a breathtaking sight to behold. Great works of stone, all seemingly to hold up the ceiling above. It is meant to impress upon visitors to Orzammar of all who have gone before, I think. It is also meant to remind dwarves going to the surface, and thus abandoning their brethren forever, of all they are leaving behind. From Stone Halls of the Dwarves, by Brother Gnavinti, Shanty Scholar. Orzammar Politics. As dangerous as it is to mistake a dwarf's caste, it is more deadly to mistake his alliances among the noble houses of Orzammar. Everyone in the city is allied with someone, whether by blood or by word. The nobles do not engage directly in commerce themselves, as that is the domain of the merchant caste, but they do serve as patrons. They invest in shops or in artisans' I can't even pronounce that word, artisans' work, and in turn reap a share of the profits as well as a measure of the credit. Merchants and warriors alike benefit from the service of a prestigious patron. The relative power of each house is ever-changing. It is usually safe to assume that whichever noble house holds the throne is at the top of the heap. But below that, things grow into a tangled mess. Houses ally with one another by marriage. They can earn rank and prestige when combatants loyal to them, or from their own bloodlines when provings. They earn it when artisans they patronize become sought after or well regarded, or when the merchants they invest in become successful. The degrees of power that these achievements confer is so murky, even to the dwarves, that it isn't unusual for nobles to challenge each other to provings over whose smith forges better belt buckles, or whose servants have the best manners. Nor is it out of the ordinary to find two merchants arguing over whose noble patron has won the most acclaim, for the rank of the patron is the rank of the client. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the assembly, where the Deshirs, representatives of each noble house, meet. Although the king technically rules Orzammar, kings are elected by the assembly, and so each king must work constantly to maintain support of the Deshirs. Kings who prove unpopular find their heirs deemed unacceptable to inherit the throne. Power then passes to another house. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chanty Scholar, by Brother Gnavinti, and the final one is the proving. Valos Atridum. In the 23rd year of the reign of King Rhaegon Adukin, an old man from the servant caste was accused of stealing a sapphire ring from his employer, Lord Dace. The servant was stripped of his position, he and his family thrown to the streets, and soon after, the servant died. The son of the disgraced servant challenged Lord Dace to a proving, declaring that his father had been the victim of a cruel injustice, and that the ancestors would bear him witness. Lord Dace had no choice but to accept. On the sacred stone of the proving ground, the nobleman faced the servant boy. Lord Dace carried a sword crafted for his own hand, and was clad in his great-grandfather's armor. The servant boy had neither armor nor weapon. When the battle began, the boy fought like a whole pack of angry deepstalkers, flinging himself upon the startled lord, wrenching the sword from his hand, and prying at his armor with his bare fingers. The boy knocked Lord Dace to the ground and beat him, until the lord begged for mercy. The boy and his family were reinstated to their place in the Dace household, and the virtue of the boy's father was not questioned again. The ancestors had spoken, and no one would question their word. As told by Shaper Vortag. And we have a book and song. We have 3 of them, but I'm gonna need to take a break. My voice is cracking. Thank you for listening, everyone. When we come back to this, we'll be reading more lore. I will see you then.